a lot of abductions you hear where it's really scary. It was really scary but it wasn't violent. It wasn't, they seemed to be concerned about what happened.
I was just going to make mention that it's also unusual because this is also unusual. They knocked on the door.
Yes, exactly.
And
you don't hear that stuff.
No, you don't. So that's why I'm asking with the shape of the figure, the respect level, and the human traits that, maybe that is a possibility that they are a hybrid.
They were hybrids.
Because of what they've been learning.
Interestingly enough, as a child, you really don't put two and two together till later, but I remember, now I grew up in the military, and my father was in the Air Force, and he worked on missile bases, and he was in North Dakota during those big flaps where the UFOs turned on and off the missiles. They armed and disarmed the missiles. And my father, there was one incident, my father worked at between Grand Forks and Minot, North Dakota, and there was one incident where a UFO armed the missile, and they tracked it to our small town in Northwood, North Dakota, where I was living as a child. And this was in '68. I was 5 years old, and that's when I had my first real encounter with a strange, very beautiful, strange woman.
Okay.
But she had the same kind of eyes. The same huge blue eyes that were almost violet. But she was really pretty. And she followed me throughout my life. She showed up when my dad was stationed in Wyoming and stationed back. I was born in Colorado, and then we moved back to Colorado. And she showed up here. And so it's been crazy.
I do remember that story from the article. Stan, now you have said that you have had about 10 experiences just off the top of your head where you've seen people in uniform, human beings in uniform. Do you think
two experiences that I think I've had probably altogether 10 abduction experiences or encounters.
Okay.
And two of which were about trying to scare the heck out of me.
Right.
And I was sick for weeks afterwards, which is not typical. One of the experiences I've had, one of the most memorable experiences I've had, good experiences, I tore anterior cruciate ligament, and I was supposed to go to surgery that next Wednesday, and Tuesday I was came back missing my cast, and my leg was fixed.
All right.
And it's all documented, and my wife recorded the conversation with the doctor, and they just couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out how suddenly my leg was fixed.
Yeah.
But the two bad ones were, they could have been government or black ops. That's the only thing I can think of.
The reason I mention it is because what you mentioned about your father being involved in the military, it was a perfect segue for me to mention that you had experiences with uniformed individuals. Do you think there's a direct connection between that and your experiences, the military connection?
There could very well be. Because my father was a lifer he was in the Army first, and he was in the Air Force, and he spent all of his life in the Air Force for 30-some-odd years. Nobody really knows what he did. He won't tell you what he did.
Really?
He was supposedly enlisted, but I remember they saluted him, so you don't really salute enlisted. You salute, something higher. And, that makes sense, but can I prove it? No. If you talk to a lot of people, there's a lot of people in the military. There are a few things that are different about experiencers. Either their blood type, or they're dyslexic, or they're in the military. They're the three top things. I'm actually two of those. I'm severely dyslexic, and I was raised in the military.
Interesting. Before I go any further, Stan, I have to ask you, do you have any... have you had any experiences that might allude you to think that, like what I'm trying to say is, have you noticed any special abilities or anything develop in yourself?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Really?
I don't talk about it much because it's hard for me to accept, but you bet. I've always, as a child, I've always been different. I've never really fit in, and that's just the way it is, especially being dyslexic. Oddly enough, I was treated like I was retarded in, grade school and junior high school, but then when they did, IQ tests, I was, in the brilliant category and ended up, belonging to Mensa, which is, I guess for smart people. But,
yeah, slightly. That's really fascinating. I don't know if anyone's actually touched on that with you before in other interviews of whether or not you have ever noticed any development of abilities.
No, actually they haven't, but yes, I have. I've had, and I really didn't really believe the gifts and stuff that I have, and, my father does too, he won't admit to it, are just, they're just, I think everybody has them. I think some people have them more. The things that I've experienced, believe it or not, and you can choose not to if you want to, have to do with being able to make people feel better and being able to kind of connect to feelings. Like I've had some situations where I'm walking through a store and all of a sudden I get really angry and I can't figure out why, and then I look next to me and there's this kid having a temper tantrum.
Mm-hmm. So you empathy.
I guess you can call it that, and I've had that. It's a lot stronger the older I get. It gets more pronounced, but I've had that ever since I was a kid. And it's hard to be in very, very crowded, tight spaces because of it, because I get mixed emotions and it kind of freaks me out a little bit. So I'm a little bit claustrophobic in situations like that.
Totally understand where you're coming from here. Stan, I'm so glad you're here. I have so many questions for you. It's amazing. I feel really connected to you somehow. So let's get back to the experience you've had with the beings. Now, what you had mentioned earlier was that these three beings had come into your place. You tried to throw one off the balcony. Where did it go from there, that initial encounter?
When I grabbed the mail, as I said earlier, I felt a light tap in the back of my head, and I woke up somewhere else. Okay. Basically, where I woke up, it didn't look like, could it be somebody's basement? Could it be in a room in a different building? Yeah, that's a possibility, but it's a room I've never seen before, a type of room I've never seen before. There were no corners. Okay. There was no freestanding furniture. Everything looked like it was molded out of the surroundings. And the lighting was weird. It was like there were no light bulbs. There were no light sources. Just everything was lit up. Like the light was coming from everywhere.
Right.
And I was stuck to a wall when I woke up, literally. And those centrifugal force amusement park rides?
The Gravitron, yeah, I used to love them.
Yeah, the Gravitron, exactly. That's what it felt like. I wasn't glued or, tied to a wall. I was stuck to it. I could move my head, my hands. I couldn't move my arms or my upper body or my legs. But I could kind of tilt my head to look, and I saw, when I came to, I saw the female coming through an opening, came right at me, and she put her hand, and I was wondering, first of all, what in the heck was going on? Secondly, how she could possibly be walking around, and I was stuck to this wall.
Okay.
And I remember looking to the side of me, and there were maybe 1 inch round copper pieces embedded in this wall, like every foot or so. And I don't know what it had to do with anything, but I remember that. And she came up, and she, right next to the wall, she put her hand on this lit panel, and it released me.
Wow.
And I was absolutely terrified. And what I remember specifically, every time I had a thought in my head, another thought came back, like, oh my God, where are you from? All of a sudden, this picture popped in my head, or, oh my God, how'd you get here? This picture popped in my head. It was really quite disturbing.
Okay.
She brought me forward, and then the two males came up. One had a box over his shoulder, and at the end of the box was a lit, illuminated tube with what looked to me like a melon ball, or I don't know how else to explain it. They turned me around, and I could feel this stinging, this incredible stinging sensation in my lower back. And I'm sitting there trying to scream. I was screaming internally. I couldn't really do anything externally. And again, I felt the tap on the back of my head, and I woke up on a table in the middle of the room.
Wow.
Well, when I was on this table, I was coming to, and I sat up. Didn't feel any real ill effects, or the pain was gone. And I remember the female looked at me, kind of tilted her head like a dog, and that's what they do. Their mannerisms are really bizarre. They don't move like you or I, and they like to tilt their head a lot, like they're trying to focus in on your thoughts. Maybe I don't know how else to explain it.
Okay.
And she tilted her head, and literally an explosion of thoughts exploded in my brain.
Wow.
And it was so intense, I literally fell off the table. She stepped back as if to say, okay, you stupid poor idiot, we're going to try this again. So I got up back on the table, and thought after thought, image after image filled my head. And then when it was done, I woke up the next morning, 8 o'clock the next morning, thinking I had some kind of nightmare.
Right.
And that's what's amazing about this whole thing. They didn't stop me from remembering anything. My body did, because I couldn't handle it. I was so freaked out. I didn't believe in this stuff, so my brain couldn't handle it. So it said, okay, it was a horrible nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
I got up 8 o'clock in the morning to go make some pancakes, and my sister was up, and everything was fine and dandy until my sister goes, what in the hell happened to your back? And when I felt, I couldn't, there was no pain, so I didn't know what she was talking about. But when I took my hand and ran it across the lower part of my back, there were these holes in my back. And then it dawned on me that what I experienced was real.
Wow, that's incredible. Stan, what was the information that they were filling you up with? And we'll hear about what the extraterrestrial entities relayed to Stan Romanek and subsequently told the world right after a track here from the New Pornographers off their Challengers record released in August of 2007 off of the Last Gang label, Adventures in Solitude, right here on Unified Field Radio.
We thought we